So we went to the junkyard, and for the first time in my life I saw one.
I think we're going to get started, if you're okay with that. Hello? Yes? I think we're going to get started. Yes. Hi. Hi, thanks. I'm sorry, I can't speak anymore. My voice is broken. So I just wanted to welcome you on behalf of the French-American Chamber of Commerce and GABA, which is a German business association. The director of the French-American Chamber, Caroline, couldn't be here today. She'll be here, I'm sure, at next event. So we're launching those series of booster series, more workshop targeted for professionals who want to improve their knowledge of the American way of doing business. So today we're welcoming very high-profile, seasoned professionals and CEOs of communication and intercultural management. So Erika Lee here and Angelica, and I don't want to misname.
Blendstrup.
Thank you.
Doesn't matter.
Yes. And we also wanted to thank Louis from Shepherd and Mellon, who's hosting this event and might be hosting the whole series maybe that we'll be talking about it soon. So thank you very much.
Very good to have you here. Shepherd Mellon is a full-service law firm founded in 1927, focused on the California market. We help companies get formed, get financed, get patented, and through the whole life cycle of companies. And so it's our pleasure to host you today. And among our partners, we have many transatlantic folks like yourselves who have navigated this process before, and look forward to hosting the series. So enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. So both Eric and I are very different. We like to have lots of interaction with you. We don't like to stand there and lecture. So please feel free, and of course the Europeans, you will interrupt and you will feel free to give your comments. We're going to try to see if this PowerPoint works. Wasn't really planning on it, but I usually talk about at Berkeley, at Haas, and at UCLA to the fresh MBA students that just come in, and I warn them about the dangers of American culture. And Erica, when I teach at Stanford, I teach in the evenings, she comes and charms my classes with her presentations, so I'm thrilled to be able to do this with her. We have never worked together in this sense. We really don't know what the other is going to say, but we'll definitely comment on each other's thoughts and ideas, and I feel free to disagree, and feel free to disagree as well. But again, you being Europeans, you will. My name is Angelica Blendstrup, and I'm part of GABA, part of Silicon French, part of the Brazilians, the Russians. I think Silicon Valley is everything nowadays if you're part of many, many cultures and many groups. I've lived here over 20 years. I'm originally from Germany. And in spite of my teaching this, I have to admit I still make mistakes. And I know I do. And I can kick myself after I make them, but you know, it's some cultural things you just can't get rid of, and it's so if you do make mistakes, give yourselves a break. It's totally fine. So I'm going to be giving some tips about Europeans and what they shouldn't do in Silicon Valley, California in particular, and Erica is going to.
So I'm going to talk to you about the strange things that Americans do, and there are a lot of them. But we're going to talk about the ones for business. In particular, really kind of focusing on when you're looking at things like doing partnership deals or hiring, or those awkward situations when you're transferring or transitioning over to dinner and evening events, things like clothing, how to say hi, and then more, high-level things like how to close a deal or when you should or what someone's implying in a conversation.
Okay. So
covering things like that. My background is I actually I run a small PR agency with clients. My agency is about 10 years old, and clients all across the tech industry. I also, for the French embassy in Ubi, France, I teach a class of all executives to do a 10-minute pitch and to do negotiations for the French tech tour. And then I help on the Business Booster on several different ways, whether it's talking about social media or it's talking about presentations or just listening to companies about what their business models are and maybe some ways they should approach the market. So I kind of addressed a lot of those. I do media training, work a lot with CEOs of different companies from NVIDIA all the way through to, geez, I've worked with a lot of political candidates as well. So I'll cover the gamut on the strange things that you should expect.
And Erica reminds me the good American thing is to be able to introduce yourself properly, which we Europeans don't do. So just a quick, my company, we work with internationals. Accent reduction, presentation training, pitch training, English writing, and cultural things. So, see, that's the thing that I always forget to do is kind of give that background. Most of the things that, and unfortunately the computer isn't working right now because I was between doing a PowerPoint and not doing a PowerPoint, and I'll see if we can see some of the slides. Most misunderstandings are really around communications, different ways of thinking, power structure, individualism, not time and space. But I really go into more the communication and the thinking, as that's also my business when I work with the business schools. But again, please, and we're going to have some exercises, go through some things, and we'll see how long I don't overspeak, because Erica's also. One of the things, so I'm going to start listing some of the things, try to give you some examples. One of the things that's really important to note, especially if you're French, is that the French are implicit and the Americans are explicit. So, which means you're really going to have to talk and say what you mean and not think, oh, the other guy's going to get it out of whatever different signals. They won't. For Germans, it's easy, you're explicit, they're explicit, except Germany, we're a bit too explicit. But we will talk about that afterwards. But that's very important. And the other thing, of course, is the degree of formality. Let me get up. I'm so used to doing this standing. The degree of formality, and I think that's one of the things that's also very hard for people, is you call your boss Bob, John, Ted, Fred, whatever, but there is that invisible line that you can't then say, hey, Bob, how about, let's go have some coffee. And I think that line between the formality and informality that in German we have with the Sie and the Vous in French, that's very hard to decipher in this culture, because there is a certain formality, which you do have to be aware of, and I'm sure you are, since I think some of you have lived here before. So explicit. So there's a really good, let me see if it works down. There's a really good slide. Oops. That's the implicit, explicit, about this year, which shows where we are on a scale. The really high context implicit, I think the most are the Japanese, Chinese, Arabs, and then it goes kind of down, if you can, those who are young and can see this still, Spanish, Italian, French, and then it goes over to the more direct cultures, American, but much more direct, Germans, Swiss Germans, and who are the most direct in the world? The Israelis. They're really direct. They really tell you how you feel, which for me is great because then I know how they feel when I work with them. But it takes some getting used to. One of the important things, especially when you present, is to understand the differences in the thinking patterns. How I'll have to do this afterwards. How in Europe and Latin America and the Middle East, we really start and go from a hypothesis to a solution. Even nowadays, when I'm working with people and they have presentations, they'll present their hypothesis and then they'll go down. And what's really a killer here is they'll discuss the problems in details. You can't do that. Problems are something that are, and again, on the one thing I wanted to say, a lot of this is stereotypical. And it's not to be mean-spirited. A lot of things it isn't true, but I'm trying to paint more with a big brush on what is customary and what isn't. So again, if you say, oh, I haven't seen this, that isn't true, well, good, but it does happen in a general way. So again, Europeans, hypothesis, problems in details, very eloquent. It's very important in Germany and France that you speak well. Probably use a lot of good Latin and Greek origin words. That really impresses, right? And you emphasize the why, and also there's a big emphasis to the past. This is how we did in the past, this is what worked in the past, what didn't work in the past, etc. Versus in the United States, it's really important, main ideas up front. Get to the solution. That's what people are interested here. They don't want to hear problems, they want to hear, the problems are in the past. What is your solution? How are you going to find a way out of whatever problems you had? The third thing is, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, depending on time, be simple and brief. I have a lot of problems when I'm working with, and right now I'm working with a group of Spaniards, and I'll ask them, especially companies, well, what do you do? And they'll say, well, we want to change the world. Well, how do you start? You start out here, and then we drill down to what it really is. So if you express yourself in an American context or in a company, don't go out on tangents and start a sentence and think, oh, I better fill in this detail, I better fill in that detail. That doesn't work. Simple and brief and to the point is really, really important here, right?
Yes.
The emphasis is not on the why, it's on the how. How are we going to fix it? How are we going to do it? It's not why did it go wrong, why. It's very much, and then the emphasis again is very much on the future and not the past. And as glib and as flip as this sounds, that's a totally different approach of presenting and talking with people here. The other thing is, of course, the power structure. People aren't told what to do. It's not managing by Moses anymore. You consult people, and I know my French clients always get really upset when, you're in a group and everyone has to buy in. You're familiar with that expression? To buy into something, and they think, well, why can't we just tell them what to do? Come on. This has to be done, and, why don't they just do it? Well, that doesn't work here. There has to be buy-in. And a lot of the authority isn't the PhD, my uncle, the CEO. It's really what have you done and what can you do. So meritocracy, to a point, does work in the United States. We could say where meritocracy doesn't work, which is women and minorities. But let's say in general, meritocracy works very well. Okay, what I'd like you to do is get in a group of 2. Preferably not 2 French, 2 Germans, 2 whatever. See if you can mix up the nationalities. One of you, and I will see how the direct and the indirect and how you're willing. Now, when I do this at UCLA, I have around 200 students, and I have like 12 nationalities. It's great. From the Israelis to the Chinese, and then you can really see the different attitudes. So the exercise is, one of you is a supervisor, the other one is the employee. This is an annual review. The supervisor is offering you a 2% raise. You, of course, demand, or not, expect a 5% raise. So discuss this as if this were a real-life situation, and then get back to us how you manage that situation. And that'll be interesting, especially German and French, because the cultures really are very different. So if you can mix up the nationalities, don't do it too French. And if they're not enough Germans, then do 2 or 3 people. Okay, did you all understand the supervisor? The supervisor offers you a 2% raise. You want a 5%. How are you going to manage that? Go for it. Okay, I want to hear back, especially from, say, if you're from one country or which country you're from, and how did you do it? One couple, I noticed that one person was talking all the time and the other one was listening, which was very respectful for the listener, but for the talker, I'm not quite sure how that would work in real life. So, let me hear back from you. How did it go, and who got the 5%, and what did he or she have to do to get it? If you don't volunteer, I will pick on you.
So,
we know each other.
So I didn't get the 2%. The 5%. No, the 5%. No, the 5%.
Really?
I didn't get the 5%, but my boss gave me some more time off.
Okay. And you're French, and she is
American.
American. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So, who won the? How was he with language?
Great. I think we had a really effective conversation.
Very direct up front?
Yeah, he stated exactly what his needs and concerns were, and I shared mine, and then talked about, well, what could we do that doesn't, involve money.
Very good. Okay, so
I want to just point one thing out. One of the keys to having American conversations is exactly what she said. She said we had a very effective conversation. Mm-hmm. It was sort of like I got what I wanted, and you got what you wanted, and you said what you wanted. That's called... That thing of effective is a little bit different in translation, right? So it's not about having a long conversation. It's not about saying everything you wanted to say, but it has to be a win-win.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so important in this culture, that someone doesn't walk away and start really saying these bad words in their minds. But that's a really good point. I'm glad you said that. Who else? What other experiences?
I got really sophisticated feedback how bad I did in the last year.
I saw that. He was talking and talking and talking and
Don't want to
talking.
go to any job. No.
Was he very direct in what he told you, how you didn't do well? Because we're going to get to that.
Yeah,
He was.
definitely. Yeah, I received definitely very, very direct feedback, but very structured. And unfortunately, we didn't finish talking about if I actually.
I would interrupt my boss. If my boss kept going on, I would say, so just why don't we get to the bottom line here?
Absolutely.
Are you firing me, or am I getting that raise?
Yeah, that was like in the core of.
Yeah,
But you don't.
And you
don't.
literally sat like this.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was
leaning
perfect.
towards him, and he was listening. Right, and he went on and on and on. It was fascinating.
And I've never seen so much detail in a role
Right.
play in my life.
That's very true.
Yes, yeah, and that's common. So when I worked, and also the other thing is, there's a difference in the French way of talking to an employee, which is really interesting. Positive versus negative. A lot of times in France, you start with the negative, and then you work your way to the positive. In the U.S., you start with the positive and work your way to the negative.
So it's called the happy sandwich.
Yeah.
It's called, and so if you were giving feedback, what you really, in this culture, should say to him, what's your name?
Nick.
Nick. Nick, you're doing really well in A, B, C, D. But it has to be genuine. And I saw the improvements. Now comes the negative. And everyone knows this. Now comes the negative, but only in terms of positive. Not you suck at this and boy was this bad. Which Germans I know do in Germany to employees. I think the French might. But really in terms of how can you improve? You didn't do this, but you could do better if you did X, Y, and Z. So really helpful comments. And then you close with something positive. That's the happy sandwich.
The funniest thing about it is that if you start with the negative, and even if you end with the positive, an American will remember that negative and not understand the conversation they just had.
I think everyone will.
Well, I don't know. I think that in Europe it's a little bit different. It's a little bit expected.
Yeah,
right?
but if you hear negative, don't you shut down? Isn't it the first thing you think is, oh God, embarrassing, I feel that funny feeling in your stomach, etc. And the funny thing is lots of Europeans will say, that's so superficial. And that's so, why do they do that? They don't mean it. First of all, your comments, you have to mean them when you say something positive. And everyone knows it. Positive, negative, positive. But it's so much easier to swallow that way.
Yeah, from a French point of view, it can appear very formal. Sometimes if you have really something negative to say, you can feel forced to find positive or things and not to be so direct. So giving direct feedback. So I understand.
I think that, and it's such a small difference. What I'm thinking here is that when I was listening to you, I thought that he was not getting a raise at all.
Yeah, me too.
I thought he was getting fired.
I didn't even see him speak. Did you ever get a word in?
I threw once in a while. But I disagree.
So I think it's a subtle. You shouldn't feel forced to say something nice about a person. Hopefully you can find something nice.
Well, but then he's not talking about the person, he's talking about the work.
But
the work quality.
Yeah.
Right.
And there
Well,
has to be
still.
something nice, you would have fired him. Yeah. So, I think he should find something positive to say. That's genuine.
Yeah.
And meaningful. Not, I love the way your desk is clean every day.
Sure.
But I think I don't know. I've seen people light into, Germans or French light into people, and I thought that was very
the part with this interrupting the boss, I learned it differently.
Yeah,
so
me too.
interrupting the boss,
I
is
agree.
I'll let him talk if he has to say, but I'll come back strong once he's done talking.
I agree with you, and I think in
But
interrupting...
it's too late, I guess,
You
right?
may never get that chance.
Yeah.
I think that depends on honestly on your character and what you dare do and what you don't dare do. If you're an introvert and shy, there's no way you can do it. If you're like us, you can do it.
Yeah. Just why I work.
No, but the one thing is, and I'm jumping ahead, the interrupting in America is such a sin, and we all do it. In France, and I speak fluent French, he who speaks the loudest gets heard, right, in a group discussion. And in Germany, it's not that much different. So the one thing that I think that is, and that's where I screw up in my classes at Stanford, I had to have people, friends who would sit there and just watch for that and say, don't interrupt when someone asks something. So get all enthusiastic and then you jump in, and here you have to let people talk to the end. Most of the time. Most of the time. And most Europeans don't do that. And I don't care if they're Russians or Spaniards or French or Germans. I think we're also used to jumping into conversations. And people take it really seriously, and it's an insult very often. I've had, once I was giving a talk, and I was driving back with a lady. I said, oh, you know, how did you think it'd go? This is many years ago. She said, you were really aggressive. I said, I wasn't aggressive. I mean, I really wasn't. It was just a normal. And she said, yeah, you interrupted all the time. So that was seen as a very, very negative way to be. That's something I really think we have to watch out for in business. Yeah, you don't have to raise your hand. Just go in.
Okay, I have a question. Like, if there's some technical problem, like with the landlord, the air conditioner's not working right. I mean, how do you start then? I mean, do you better call him and say
in Germany or here?
No, here in the States. Or do you, because I sent out an email, basically, we have a problem, and saying, how do we do this?
Hi, John. How are you? God, aren't we having wonderful weather? You know, what I wanted to let you know was we have a little problem in our apartment. That's how.
The sandwich.
That's how. It's,
I mean,
it's the being polite.
Yeah.
It's the directness. So, you know, you can't do that here at all.
Is it better to call, too, because of...
I think email is fine. You
Yeah.
also want to document the email.
Yeah.
No, email is fine, but you have to be really polite and then close politely. It's so important. It's the very German thing. And no one means badly by it. You just get to the point of meeting, hey, here's the problem, okay, let's fix it, goodbye. That doesn't work here.
I also think that with everything that we're saying, it depends on the relationship that you have with the other person. So, like with my landlord, I text him. Alex, toilet's broken. Erica, will you handle it? Yes. Put it in the bill. I will.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
I mean, he hopes that at 40 I can call a plumber and not explode the house, right? If it was the kids upstairs, he would actually have to come out and make sure that they didn't explode the house. So, you know, it's very different. They have a different relationship than I do with him. But one of the things that I think is really important is that there are times to interrupt. How you do that is really important.
I agree.
So, wait until someone ends their sentence. Don't wait until they finish the hour. Wait until they end their sentence. The difference, I think, between, and I think, which is really interesting, is jumping in. If you want to use the word "I'm jumping in," then you're actually physically aggressively jumping in. And so that's the thing that doesn't work. You kind of wait and you listen until there's sort of a logical conclusion to that thought process. Let that person finish that. This goes back to the comment about having an effective conversation. What is rewarding? There's a sense of fairness in conversation, I think, in an American culture.
Yes.
If you are not giving me that time, then we are now having a different type of conversation.
Different
Do you see what I'm
relationship.
saying?
Yeah.
So, for example, if I am talking over you and interrupting you, and you know how, like, if you're all at a dinner table,
Which we
you're
all do.
somewhere, and we're talking, and everybody's jumping in. If we do that, and it gets louder and more aggressive, then there's a different translation of that. There's a time to have arguments, don't get me wrong, and there's time for healthy debate, but also to let someone finish. There's a sense of sort of fairness in a conversation back to back.
Which gets me to language, and that's something I think is the hardest, because for me, it's such a discrepancy between the things we see in the movies, the direct Americans who tell you everything, who say what they feel and say what they think. And that isn't so, especially in business. It may be in private, but here we're talking business language. Because it's much more, so the things you really can't say to someone is, no, your idea is not going to work. I don't agree with you. I'm talking about a meeting where someone has presented an idea. You're wrong. And I mean, in Europe, you're wrong is easily said. You cannot say that here. And you really get in trouble at meetings if you do that, especially in front of other people. I'm not saying you can't say it when you're alone. But when you're with other people, there are sentences that I practice with my clients. And I belong to a Rotary Club, a lovely Rotary Club, where there are lots of Americans. So I'm normally with foreigners, because that's who I work with. And I really watch out, do people really use these phrases? And they do. And so some of the phrases is, instead of saying, this is like this, which is very German, you say, it seems to me that. The other phrase is, of course, I think. Everything is I think it is. Even if you know it, I think it is. Another way is, could we look at it this way, if you want to disagree? Instead of saying, no, you're wrong, this is the way to do it. Could we look at it this way? Or, would this be possible? That's where American business culture is very, very indirect. And I think that's where we all have problems with really this discrepancy between directness and indirectness. The other ones that are very useful are, did I hear, when you want to make sure the other person, as Erica was saying, that equal balance, when you want to make sure the other person feels heard, you say, did I hear you correctly when you said, and then you repeat a couple of the phrases. This also works well, by the way, in parenting. And that is, there's a parenting effectiveness training where you basically blah blah back to the kids what they said, and then to elicit more response. And it works, except when I did it with my children, they said, "Oh, mommy, what class did you take?" So it doesn't always work, but it does. Or another phrase is, might there be another way of looking at this? The one I love the most. And I think it's the one that you can escape criticism if someone says something to you that something isn't going to work. I love this sentence. Help me understand how this, blah, 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 what you suggested is going to change, etc. That's very non-aggressive, but I think it still gets across the same message. Right?
I'm just laughing because I use them all.
Yep, I don't. I have to. It's not.
But the challenge is not to laugh when you do it.
Yep. But in honesty and seriousness, I was working with a German client, and he had such problems in the office. He didn't mean that. He was just very direct. Just like she was, what's your name?
Astrid.
Just like Astrid was saying, she got to the point. You know, she said, this is the problem, let's take care of it, done. That doesn't work here. These phrases help tone down the whole conversation, make it much, much easier for people to interact with each other. And everyone is raised here that way. We have to learn the phrases. So I can give you advice. If you've had any problems, use those phrases and see what different reaction you will get, and you will. The other thing is that very often, if we're speaking French or German, Americans will think we're arguing. Has that happened to you? Yes. Where they say, what were you fighting about? Fighting about anything. We were just having a discussion.
Well, wait. I want to go into that, though. This is good. So I was going to talk a little bit about this later, but there's not really a nice way of saying this. But sometimes you're having a conversation, and it goes on, and it becomes a debate, and everybody gets a little bit emotional about that, and that's very normal in, well, frankly, all over Europe. In an American conversation, there's a point at which, I don't know how to say this nicely.
Just say it.
We don't care. So it's not that we don't, we do not really want to fight to the death for your opinion. Nor do we really, really want you to change our opinion.
But Erica, neither do we. It just comes across that way.
I know, but what you'll find is that all of a sudden the American person will pull out of the conversation.
Yes, and we'll pull back.
Because there's this point where I'm like, wow, I don't really want to argue with you.
That's such
and you're not arguing.
No.
But I'm just like, I kind of don't argue with you because I don't really care what you think.
No, it's true. I think we have these debates where we talk, whether it's cable TV or whether it's, I don't care, where we get engagiert in German. You know, you discuss it and you're using your hands and you're very vocal. And I remember doing that about some stupid topic. And the guy turns to me, and it wasn't that long ago, I have to confess, and he says to me, boy, you really care, don't you? And I felt so stupid. No, I didn't care that much. It was just the way I was.
And there's this point where you're just debating with yourself. And we're going,
yeah, exactly.
And except for sports.
Well, okay, there we're on the other. There's soccer, that's the same thing.
And like, or just certain things that cultures talk about, right? Like politics, debating about politics.
Except you can't talk about politics.
We don't really talk
in
about
America.
Politics.
I used to do one fun thing at a cocktail party. I would tell my friends, now watch this. I will show you how to ruin a conversation in 5 minutes. So I would go up to someone and I would say something really awful about Bush. I couldn't stand him. And I would say, I mean, it wasn't a rude comment, but just something, oh my God, look at what the Bush regime has done again, or something terrible. And within 3 minutes, the very polite American would excuse him or herself, would say, you know, I think I'm going to get some more food. In a very short time. You cannot talk politics here in business, at networking events, whatever, unless this is the Democratic Convention or the Republican Convention, then you can do it.
I have friends that I specifically talk politics with.
Yes.
The rest of them,
right.
Never ask somebody who they voted for. Never ask them, especially right after the election.
Okay, fine.
Sometimes,
that's okay.
I mean, you know, there's certain people that actually want to engage you because they wrote it on their car. There's a big bumper sticker. But, you know, that kind of thing. It's just, we don't.
Okay, so we have 2 more small exercises, and then I have the 12 faux pas. I'm sure we'll laugh. Something we already talked about. Okay, so how would you handle this? And I love there's one American. Is there another American? Okay, great, good.
Are we totally crazy? Are we lying yet?
No. So far, actually, I'm married to a Parisian.
Okay.
She's not French, she's Parisian, right?
That has changed. No, that has changed over the years. So I think the Parisians are marvelous and friendly and everything.
No, I know. I give her a hard time, but a lot of this is coming. It's hitting a little bit too close to home. Anyway, keep going.
Okay, so I'd like you to again pair up, same person or not. You know, you're allowed to get up too and walk around. And the first exercise is one of your coworkers comes to your office frequently and interrupts your work. What do you do? How do you handle that? And it's very cultural. Go ahead.
So,
the other. Okay, the other.
Sorry, do you want us to role play one of us as a coworker?
Yes. No. Yeah. No. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Or hold on. How did I do that at UCLA? No, you can also tell. Yeah, we did role play it, but we can do it like that. All right, so one of your coworkers constantly comes to your cubicle and interrupts you while you're working. How do you handle it? Literally, what do you say? Don't tell me I would do and then. Tell me, what do you say? So I'm going to come by, I'm bugging you all the time, frequently.
Okay, one is the bugger and one is the...
What do you say? What do you say to that person? Yeah?
Hey, I really am super busy right now. Can we just grab a coffee later? I'll take a break later.
Okay, now you've been here a while, so you're from Swiss Nicks. You're already pretty good at Italian. Okay, now I'm coming back. I'm coming back again. I didn't listen to your nice suggestion. I'm coming back again.
I'm really sorry. I really don't have time right now.
I come a 3rd time.
I ignore you.
Ah, interesting. Very interesting. Okay, next. Who has an idea? Let's get someone German or French.
I'm just going to tell her to close the door after herself.
Oh! Would you do that the first time, 2nd time, or 3rd time? The first time.
Yes.
You would literally say to someone.
But very nicely, though.
You would say very nice. I love this exercise. It's just wonderful. Very nice. Believe me, she will never come back. That's good. You got it solved. Okay, who else? German?
I have no time right now. Can I come later to see you at your desk?
Okay. What about the 2nd time? She comes in, or he, could be a he.
I would probably say I really have no time.
Okay, and then he comes again.
Said I'm going to close my door now.
Okay, so you would very proactively. Anyone have a different reaction? Where are the French?
Yeah. Is there anything specific that you would like to discuss right now?
Okay.
Because I'm so busy and I don't want to be interrupted now.
Okay, I don't want to be interrupted. Okay, and then, did I come again? An hour later?
I'm sorry, do you have a specific problem or?
No, I just wanted to chat. I just want to see what you're doing for lunch.
Okay, so perhaps I can tell you in a moment when I have finished my...
Okay, so you stay polite.
Yeah.
Okay, what about you?
I would say, unless it's urgent, I would prefer talking later this afternoon because I have a lot of things to do now.
Okay, and then that person comes again. Because the problem is there are people who just keep on doing that. What do you do then?
I would say I prefer having maybe an appointment every week, an hour,
okay.
and talking
make an
about
appointment with
yeah,
you.
making an appointment
okay.
and talking about all the points you want to talk about.
Okay.
None of you would crack a joke?
Nope.
Oh my God! The first thing I'd be like, dude, work it. Let's talk about it later. Second,
She can get away with it. I don't know if we can.
You could. Lighten up.
Yeah.
The other thing is that it's not as formal or as serious. You can casually say, this is probably inappropriate behavior.
How would you, what would be the direct words that you would use?
Exactly what I just said.
I would be incredibly insulted if you said that to me.
I know.
So why is it so?
I definitely would not say. I think what you said plus the body language should give the person an idea of what's not. I think the word inappropriate just rings something.
Oh no, not that part. The three things that I said
before.
Okay,
but you wouldn't say to me it's inappropriate that you're coming.
I would tease you a little until you went away.
Oh, absolutely.
But the point being is that you're telling the person to go away, and I'm telling the person to look at their behavior.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right? So sometimes, and this is more of a PRing thing than anything else, there are times when you need to let people, like the light go on. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, let them figure it out. And then they learn. Versus if you just keep telling them, they just keep coming back. So
until you get rude.
Until you get rude. And this is a rude situation. This always ends in a rude, there's nothing that we can possibly do. So maybe sometimes you kind of just put up a mirror. Be like, this is you bothering me.
She does not mean, this is not literal.
Not physically.
Does not mean take a mirror and go like this.
But in your conversation you do. So that's why I would probably tease them a little bit.
That's good, yeah.
And then until the light just kind of keeps coming on, like, and keep saying, and mentioning that this is not the first time you've done this, or that I've asked you to go away. Without having to be that serious. So that's why I would tease them a little bit.
That's good. All right, second situation. You're at an important business function, and an acquaintance at your table, maybe a colleague, makes a comment that offends you. What do you do? Now, I'm assuming it's not sexual or racist or anything, because I don't think that's within the scope. But let's say that someone just makes a comment that offends you. You're at a dinner. How do you react?
Get something to drink? Can you please?
You're at a dinner, you can't get up.
Okay, yeah.
Let's hear from the people down there too. Come on, speak up. What would you do? Someone says something that's really not nice. But again, not racist, not sexual. It's going overboard. How do you react? You'd go get a drink, okay.
What did they say?
I'm not going to say anything nasty. Something that something that offends you. I don't know. Maybe they're talking about someone who's a friend, or maybe I don't know.
I don't think that Sue should have gotten that promotion. God only knows what she's been doing with her boss. I mean, they're in their office quite a long time.
For instance, that's a good
not
one.
nice.
That's not
It's
nice.
not nice.
No. Yeah, a comment like that, or
That's what I would say. That's not nice.
you would. Okay, you would say that's not nice. Okay. How else would you react to this comment? I mean, there's several ways of reacting.
I think I would say, I think it's a matter of opinion, but if you want
Okay.
to take it offline, we can talk about it in person.
Yeah, but I think you would honestly, now I'm being my German self, I think you sound a little foolish at a dinner party to say, let's take it offline.
But you
Using
might not
that
want to start
kind of jargon,
a
but I
conversation.
know what
You
you
might not
meant.
want to start like an argument in front of everybody, and if it's your personal opinion, then I think you'd rather fight it out, because otherwise everybody else feels uncomfortable.
But she didn't want this as a fight, she just is a gossip and made this stupid comment.
This could have gone on for hours at dinner.
Yeah, she likes that kind of conversation. So I think taking it that seriously might cause it to be more serious than it is. What else would you, go ahead, Nick?
No, I disagree with what he said.
What
It depends
would
on
you
the
do?
person. Depends on the person. If that person takes himself too serious, then you got to throw a joke at him. Otherwise, try to shut him off as fast as possible.
I think one way is great is ignoring him,
Or ignoring him.
right?
Well, by shutting him off is ignoring him.
Exactly.
That's one way.
Or pointedly change the subject.
Or pointedly change the subject, exactly.
How about your vacation?
No. As I said, I mean, you're right. Something really obvious that you changed the subject because you didn't want him or her to go on. That's an excellent point. No, that's very good. All right. Now I'm into my home stretch. Enough time, Erica? Yeah. So here are the 12 things, and some of them we already mentioned, what you really will get you in trouble. First of all, you cannot be negative. Now, I know you French. That's in your blood, in your nature, you're negative, wherever. And I'm not saying Germans don't do that as well. You go to a nice event, what do you say? Do we say, wow, that was a nice event? Weren't there great people and the food was whatever? No. What do we say?
We always say something with
something that, no, we don't even say that. Did you see what she wore? Or, oh my God, the lighting in that room, the food looked purple. Or, I mean, I think both of our cultures, French and German, we always are negative first. That is not appreciated here. So don't make the negative comments. It really doesn't work. People literally don't like it and will let you know that they don't like it. So if you're saying negative, say it to another European, don't say it to an American. The other thing is honesty. Now that's a very, very German characteristic. All Germans feel they have to be honest in their opinion. I remember I was talking to a group of teachers at a German school, and the parents would go after teacher conference sobbing with their child in hand from the teacher conference. And so they were saying, you know, please tell them a little bit about maybe how to handle the parents at this teacher conference. And we went through all of this, you know, how you do it, and then you first say Johnny is really nice, and he helps the class, etc. And so one of the teachers said, but that's not honest. I have to be honest. So that's a really interesting, and it is a very German characteristic, to think you have to be to tell the truth, etc. That does not work. I don't know if do the French have the same compulsion? That was a question. See, all the Germans are going, no, I didn't get that from the French.
Yeah, for example, when I first got here, for example, I buy something at the Trader Joe's and then the person asks me, how are you today? And then I think, yeah, well, today,
yeah, well, that's a difference. The formula, there are formulas. Hi, how are you? Fine, thanks, how are you? Done. It means, it's just a very polite way.
Yeah, oh yeah, we
that's
don't
all
really want to know how you
are.
That's the worst.
But the honesty is more, you know, it's not, honey, do I look fat in this dress? I mean, all the men know they will never say yes. It's just if someone asks you an opinion of a project, of a person or whatever, if you tell the truth, if you have to be honest, put it in those nice phrases that we were talking about.
The other thing is that, I mean, every time someone asks me how I am, I say the exact same thing.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of how the response is.
It's a formula.
Yeah. So, how are you? Hanging in there. And I don't even stop. I forget to ask you how you are. And you? That's as fast as it goes.
And then, of course, the foreigners think, hanging? She's not hanging, she's standing.
Yeah, I know. No one understands what that means.
Those are those other things about language.
But can I just interrupt really quickly? One thing that I wanted to talk about is, it's back to the we don't really care. The thing about telling the truth is there are times when I'm trying to decide whether if I tell you the truth, it actually really matters, not to you, but to me. Like, maybe I'm talking to someone I'm never going to see again, ever.
You never know.
Well, you never know, but so I might just, I'm weighing it. If I tell them the truth, then we have to have a conversation about it, and then it could go this way. And I don't maybe care that much. So I might not say anything. Or, you will get this a lot in meetings, and especially in partner meetings. When someone's just not saying anything, there's not really a give and take and an exchange. Because they're just thinking, if I don't say anything, this is going to go by faster. And so I'm not negative, I'm not positive, I'm okay. Good. Yep. I didn't tell you that 2 seconds into the pitch you said something that was totally not appropriate to me. And I probably could have said, well, my problem actually is this, so can you change the conversation a little bit, and then everything would have been fine. Instead, I'm going to go, yep, totally.
Thinking your part.
And I didn't want to talk about it. I just want to get out of here.
The other point is that how many of you have lived here longer, besides, I know you two, longer than a year? Longer than 5 years? Okay. The one thing you have to realize, everyone knows everyone. That is so important in this area. If you say something about me that's not nice, I don't care to whom it is, I will probably hear about it within a week or two. I mean, we know each. They didn't know that we knew each other. We've worked together, and we together must have, I don't know, 1,000 people in common that we at least know, not friends, but know. So really, really watch what you say, to whom you say it. Everyone here knows each other. I don't care if they live in San Francisco or they live in Silicon Valley, and if they're Russian or Brazilian or Spanish or American, whatever, we all know each other, especially people who have lived here a long time, because we're all kind of in the same groups. So be really, really careful what you say. So the fifth point was, we already went through negative feedback. The fifth point was sarcasm. Germans are sarcastic. At least they were when I immigrated. Is that still true? Would you say, Nick? Still very sarcastic? What about the French also? Quite sarcastic. Doesn't work here. People I have found, now Eric, you may be correcting me.
Extremely sarcastic.
Yeah, well you are, but now think of the nice Anglo Bob and Ted and Fred and Tim and whatever, you meet at meetings, whatever. It goes above their head for about a half an hour. And then they realize that you weren't genuine, that what you said was sarcastic, and then it's really bad. Because then they feel awful that they fell for it, they didn't, you know, they believed it and whatever. So leave your sarcasm at home. It doesn't work here. And I used to be so sarcastic.
Unless you're talking with people on the other side of the country.
Yes.
Yeah, New Yorkers are
yes,
extremely
you're right.
And you can be right.
And you will be
Absolutely.
constantly negative. Complaining is
Yes.
a pastime.
Yes, we were talking about culture in California. That's a very good point. Yes, you can be more negative with New Yorkers, more direct, more, a lot of things. Exactly. Exactly. There's one other point that really threw me for a while is, so I lived in Brazil and I've lived in other countries where if you know someone, you got a good deal, right? So I was at Lake Tahoe and my kids were in a swim class and I knew the teacher who was enrolling for the swim class and the class was full. Now come on. If I knew one of you and you had the swim class, you had 20, wouldn't you let my young child of 3 years old into that class if it meant 20 or 21? I think all of us would, right? Being from Europe or Latin America or whatever. You don't do it here. And it used to drive me crazy. Or like in a class or something, say, well, if I do it for you, I have to do it for everyone else. No, you don't. You don't have to tell anyone else. But I think the beauty of the system is that people do try to be fair and do try to not be swayed by who knows whom or, whom did you bribe. Of course, not in terms of a swim lesson, etc. But you have to realize that you really aren't special. That special relationship that you can have in France or in South America or etc. doesn't work that well here. It might in the beginning, but overall, there is a certain fairness to the system. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something I think that we all have to get used to. Point 7 is arrogance. Don't be arrogant. There's so many people that are so much smarter than you are. At least that's what I found in my own experience. That to be arrogant, people just will laugh at you. And I think anyone who is arrogant loses it pretty fast when they come here.
Can I jump in on that one?
Yes.
Because
Jump in anytime.
this is something that we go through in the French Tech Tour all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone comes to the tour, incredibly meek. And I'm like, what's happening? And they're saying, well, everybody thinks, the rumor is that everybody thinks the French are arrogant, so we wanted to kind of tone it down. Look, I'm awesome. I'm sorry. I'm American. I'm amazing. The way you sell yourself in a business environment can be aggressive, and you can talk about yourself
but
as being
not
amazing.
Arrogantly. You're not putting others down.
But it's the delivery, right?
It's the delivery.
It's all about the words that you choose.
Yes.
So if you're going to buy something from me, I'm going to tell you I'm awesome.
Exactly.
And everything that I do is great, and it's so great, it's to your advantage to work with me. So everything that I'm really great about, I'm given to you. That's why you're paying me to do something. It's again this sort of win-win situation, that if I'm really darn good, then you get what you want. And that's the way you want to talk about your business and your services.
And also if you're looking for a job in an interview, you have to be able to speak positively about yourself and it's not bragging if you're able to talk about your really, really good qualifications and why the company needs them. But that isn't being arrogant, at least not for here. That's being realistic. That's just showing what you can do and how people can benefit from your expertise. The arrogance is more as, oh, I have, you know, I'm a grande école, I'm, you know, super X, blah, blah, blah. It's like, who cares? Half of the people don't even know what a grande école is here. You don't? Are you serious? I'll tell you about it. It's huge, it's huge. It's the elite of France that then goes into the government instead of startups, right? The other people go to, listen, nothing against Grande École, I have wonderful friends who have gone there. But it's that if you try that trick here, and it's funny, so I went to Stanford, and I usually don't say it, but you'll notice people from Harvard, they're even so careful, is that they'll say, oh, I went to graduate school. Oh, where? Oh, back east. They won't even say Harvard, because people will immediately go either, oh my God, Harvard, or they'll go, oh God, you know, that other, you know, if you're from Stanford, it's Harvard or the Stanford of the East, etc. And there are these rivalries going on. So be really, really careful with the arrogance of what's important and not important. Which doesn't mean you can't say, you know, I have this fabulous startup, or I'm the greatest in PR, and she is, have the greatest business, etc. That works. It's just, I'm saying, don't be arrogant.
And you have to back it up really quickly.
Haha.
Like
Yes.
you can't, I can't just
Yes.
go, I'm awesome, and then you're like,
Yes.
why? The first thing I'd say is why.
Yeah, that's very
You know, and hopefully if we're meeting, I've already done some research and I know why, and that's why I called you in. But again, you know, and I'll just to, let's be honest, Silicon Valley CEOs and tech CEOs are some of the most arrogant people I've ever met in my life. But they usually have a reason that everybody knows about it.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention Steve Jobs.
Well, Steve, wow. He was a little bit more than arrogant, yeah. But he had, you knew why. Everybody knew why.
And everyone excused it.
Yep. CEO of NVIDIA is like a rock star when he goes to press conferences. You've seen that where everybody's like, oh my God. And then, but you know, and he's pretty calm, but he can be arrogant. You know, so it just depends, and it's there. But, and so I'm not going to say that Americans are not arrogant. Americans can be extremely arrogant. But a lot of, and we're going to talk about this culturally, but a lot of it is because what you have done. Not what you have, and not necessarily who you're related to, you know, not, it's got to be like recent and amazing.
That's very true. Okay, last point, interrupting, we said don't interrupt. One of the other points is criticize, don't criticize. Don't criticize people, don't go somewhere and say, oh my God, isn't this terrible, the food is awful, I didn't understand the speaker, it wasn't that boring. That doesn't go over well either. Intolerance, I think we understand that. So even if you think that a joke is funny, if it involves anything about women, races, religion, sex, we will probably not think it's funny. Did I miss one?
The sex joke. Can we talk about this really quickly?
Let's.
This is a cultural thing that I cannot believe it. So when I had this job in France, there were so many sex jokes all day long. And
I'm not going to say were they good.
And to me, it stood out like a very rusted, spiky nail. It's just something that doesn't really happen unless you know your coworker very well.
Outside of the office, hopefully.
Or outside of the office, but not like at the boardroom. And I'm like, oh. And no one else said anything. And I had to learn that this was like totally normal. It's totally not normal. Totally not normal.
So how do you react to that comment?
So we won't say it's sex jokes when you're here.
Yeah, exactly. Wait for me to leave, and you guys can whip them all out. Oh gosh. But anyway, yeah, you can say whatever you want. But yeah, there are certain things cultural like that. I think it's a lot of times they're icebreakers in meetings. It seems like, or people are just joking around. And it just doesn't happen here.
So don't tell stories that are like that, or just make sure. I mean, humor is the last thing I think you understand from another culture. I remember when I was in Brazil and I was learning Portuguese, and I find I could talk on the phone on the street, which was a real accomplishment because you can't hear anything, but I understood, and then understanding the humor. So I think it takes a while. But just know that anything that is really sexual, racial, whatever, that even if you think it's funny, they hate it. And it's not. I will literally cut someone off if I hear someone doing it.
And every country is different. And every country is different. So if you're in the UK, you can make a race joke easier than you can make a social society joke. Because that's what they're very concerned about. And so it just depends.
Okay, one second to last, one ultimate sin is not getting to the point. You have to practice getting to the point. If you say what you do, you have to be able to say it in a sentence. It's not even the 30 seconds anymore. It's what, 9? So when I work with people also on interviewing and how they answer questions, so I'll ask them, tell me something about yourself. Oh my God, they start when they're 16. When I was 16, I was a Boy Scout, and then it goes on. And then so it never really got to the point of the question, what are your biggest strengths? Well, I get about 10 strengths instead of 1 with an example, and then you're quiet. So there are certain techniques, and the point is really get to the point. When someone asks you a question, answer the question. Don't go around in all the tangents and pull in all your information. Answer the question. And then you can always add additional information. Drives people crazy here. And the first thing they'll do is start going to the phone if you do that, especially in a meeting. And the last one, of course, is a lot of people don't network. And I think this is the most amazing area we live in to network and to use LinkedIn and to really build relationships. Because, I think you never know where that person that you were networking with, or maybe being disrespectful to or interrupting or not, won't be someone in another company and will be your superior. So, okay, that's my part. Your turn.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about, so I crack a lot of jokes, so bear with me.
That's great.
But I'm going to talk about strange things that you probably have experienced, and I really would love to hear, and then we're going to take a break and really love to hear from you guys what the strange things are that you have experienced, and maybe get some solutions for it. In particular, in business, one thing that is expected is that you can talk about what it is that you do as a company, your products and your services, and the value to me in 2 minutes. So remember when I introduced myself and I said all the little things that I've done, and that was the reason why I should even be sort of sitting here? You should be able to do that. It's very important. And so the reason why, and I'm gonna generalize a lot here, but is Americans have the worst attention span ever. And we have a whole lot of me, and a whole lot of don't care. So you've got 2 minutes to tell me why I'm listening to you.
I'm probably less than 2 minutes.
And if we've had an email exchange, you should assume that I know a little bit about you. So that by the time you get here, you should know something about me, and you should tell me why I should care about you.
LinkedIn, everyone?
What you're going to do for me, for my company. How quickly can you do it? So, really quickly on that, like if it's business to business, for example, what I tell people to do is, especially in the tech space, is to go to the website, read the About Us, understand where the founders are from, go to LinkedIn, understand where the people are from, who they know, how you have connections. Go to the About Us page and go to the press page, right? And read the most recent press releases. Understand what they were trying to overcome. And then another thing is if it's a company is very large and they're a public company, go to the earnings announcement. In the earnings announcement, the CEO says, what we think is going to happen in the market is X, Y, and Z, and that's where we're moving. And you come in and you say, well, what we think is happening in the market is X, Y, and Z. And so we think the same thing, and this is how we plan on tackling that space.
Where do you find that?
It's, that's going to be in the investor pages of the website.
Okay.
So, About Us, press room, and investor page could be in there, or it's its own separate space.
What if it isn't?
It has to be legally.
It's legally. Okay.
So those are the things that you should be checking out and that you should know. So you sit in front of me and you say, Erica, I think that you need someone to provide hair dreadlock services for you, because I understand that it takes a long time for you to twist up your locks every time you do it. And I think that you have better things to do with your time. We have 3 people. They can all be working in your hair. You're out of there in 2 hours. Wouldn't you like to get 4 hours back? It does take 6 hours. Yes. I would love to get 4 hours back. Do you see how that just turned? It was all about me. It was all about me. I like hearing about me. If you can do that in your sales process, you're golden, right? You're closing deals. I got a problem, you got a solution, great. Boom, we're done. We don't have to talk about it too long.
Right.
If you have a pricing page, I already know how much it costs. I'm probably not going to negotiate unless it's super high. But I mean, it has to be astronomical. We don't really negotiate a lot. I know. Isn't that shocking behavior? You said it was $5, it was $5. Here's $5. $2.50, I can work that out. You know, when you get to the higher numbers, we gotta have a little chit chat. We negotiate about 2 seconds on our cars. You know what I mean? Like we've looked up the Blue Book price, so we kind of know what we're gonna do. We don't shop till we have the money. Well, that's not true. But
That's
we
not
know
true. We don't shop till we have the money.
Well, we sort of shop knowing a ballpark number, whether we have the money. Or
You don't
we
understand the
have credit
ballpark
cards.
expression?
Oh yeah, sports metaphors.
Yes.
They're everywhere.
Yep.
Sports I've never even played.
Throw in the towel. We do not box.
Yes. What was I? Yeah, it's I don't know how to get you guys over the sports metaphor thing, except for a trick that even my father used, which was he was a sales guy, and he found that bonding with people over sports was the easiest thing to do. So he would get a newspaper before he went out and read the front page of like USA Today, the sports page, and all he could do was say things like those Giants. Man, it's crazy. I guess the coach did that thing, and then the players, oh, and the other person's like, yeah, the coach did do that thing. That's the only thing we get really passionate about, you know? And then after also reading those, you'll start to get the metaphors. You know?
And it's important in small talk, really, that you all, I'm working with a Chinese client who says, but I hate sports. I said, well, you have a choice. You know, you network at work or you don't. Read the damn paper, or the page that you know. Is it football season or is it baseball season? I mean, you know, you at least have to know something. It's really, really, really important to know about football and baseball and golf.
I know, you're like, why?
Is everyone watching the Super Bowl, I hope, on Sunday? You know who's playing? You have to, just for the commercials, too.
But you don't, but if you can't do it, just read a paper.
Yeah.
Just know who won. Because that's all I'm saying. Just know who won. Okay, I'm going to give you probably one of the better metaphors that I have for the United States because it seems to help people a little bit thinking about it. But we're an extremely young country. But even more so, the metaphor that I would say is most pounded into our head is the cowboy. So, what that means to you is, one, I'm a loner on my own, and I can do anything. I can pull myself up by my bootstraps. That's the term, bootstraps, from the cowboys. I can make it on my own if I just work hard enough and I push hard enough, and I don't look backwards. I'm always moving out west.
Contrary to the French who always talk about the kings, you know, there's not one conversation I have at a dinner party with French that not some king pops up. So I always have to tell all the Americans, before you go to Europe, learn about the kings, right? Here it's all future.
We don't understand those concepts of monarchies at all. We don't understand that somebody else would be greater than someone else just because they were born to someone else. This is more like I'm greater than someone else because I made myself greater than someone else. So there's a very wild, sort of wild, wild west attitude about entrepreneurship. Now this is, someone actually wrote it was in the Harvard Business Journal, a recent story about this, which was how hard really is entrepreneurship. Here we talk about it like it's like, whoa, you're an entrepreneur. But if you really kind of think about it, all businesses started off small, and someone had an idea, and someone had a shop that they took, and they made more suits, and then they made more suits, and then more people came to get their suits, and so they got bigger, and then they got a factory. Like, it all starts the same. But here, the concept of being this lone person against all odds and creating Apple, because I'm brilliant, is like everybody's dream. It's the cowboy thing. I'm going out west, I'm finding gold, and I'm going to make it rich. I will, unfortunately, hurt a lot of people on the way over and decimate a whole population, but...
Not to forget the poor buffalo.
I will, sorry, that was a Native American joke. But, but you have, this is kind of the concept, this is the thought process. So, when people are, combine that with the attitude about sports and the short attention span, what it really comes into a meeting to mean is, how can you help me get to where I want to be? I don't really care too much about you. You're either with me or you're against me, or in my way. Or how can we work together to get to where I want to be? And how quickly can we do this so I can keep moving on to the next thing? All of this means that in your negotiations and your conversations, that while we can be very aloof, it's critical for you in selling whatever it is that you have to sell to be very direct.
And short.
You will go into meetings, and it's not unusual for someone to say, I got a hard stop in 15 minutes. Go. That's totally rude, but oddly acceptable. You'll come into a boardroom, like you all set up a meeting and everything, and everybody will be like, well, I have a hard stop at 5. And you're like, I booked the meeting for 2 hours. Yeah, I know. Go. Let's get this going.
How about a meeting when we had a meeting and I think 8 people showed up? How do you deal with who you talk to? I mean, you know who the boss is, and then there are some other people that don't even know exactly what they are.
No. This is kind of crazy. When you're doing sales, I was actually going to bring this up. It's very common for you to go to a customer and for there to be 14 other people in that room that you had no idea they were going to be there. It's literally like they're walking down the aisle. Hey, Jerry, you want to hear about this company? It's kind of cool. I think you might care. And then they go and, hey, Bob, come on in. Hey, can somebody take notes? And next thing you know, you get, and the whole table is full. First of all, acknowledge things like that.
That's a good point.
Just from a speaker perspective, it helps you. When I go on stage, when I tell my clients that are going to go on stage and speak, I say, just before you get on stage, go, whew, I'm nervous. It calms you down to just say, acknowledge how you're feeling. So the first thing I'd say is, wow, wasn't expecting all of you. Maybe we can go around the table and tell me just your name really quickly and what your job title is. You write down the notes, draw the table, and write that stuff down. But you don't want to tell me what you do and what's your day job. You don't want to have a long conversation about it. You got to whip through this thing.
And if they're American, they can do this really fast.
Yeah.
And that's, we were thinking about that, whether to have everyone introduce, themselves here. And I said, nope, not in these cultures. You can do that for 45 minutes. That's why we didn't do it.
So it's not considered rude to bring in a whole bunch of people. One of the ways that you can get around it, though, is I usually send an email to the coordinating person the day before. This is really important. And say, I'm just confirming our meeting tomorrow. First of all, that's important because it tells me that you care, and it also reminds me that we have a meeting tomorrow. A lot of times you'll get back, oh, good Lord. Can we move that? It's not that kind of flakiness. Don't think it's a bad thing. It's just that they forgot to put it on their calendar, hopefully. And then, I know that you'll be there. Can you let me know who else will be in the room? I do that all the time, night before.
Does it prepare you, or will they have fewer people? What is the purpose?
Sometimes they know. Sometimes you actually want them to think. So, for example, say that I've gotten into, I don't know, the VP of marketing, but I know that the buyer of my product is really, or the guy who really cares is IT. And I really need to get to him because it's on his budget line, but it's a marketing application. I will actually send this, like maybe a document beforehand that'll be really technical, that they won't be able to read. And say, I'm really looking forward to our conversation tomorrow. Let me know if anybody else is going to be in the room. By the way, here's a technical document that I think might explain some of the features that the more fuzzier conversation that you and I are going to have. Let me know, or you might want to send it to your IT department. And then you're kind of guiding these conversations. Think of these things like a roadmap, right? And your conversation's like a roadmap. You're here, you want to get here, you got 20 stops in between, you know these people sort of care, don't care, must care, have to be in the room, blah, 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 blah. How can you quickly get through this? Because if you take too much time, they will lose interest. The other thing is, don't blow it. And by that I mean, and that means
careful, don't blow it is not what it
yeah, no, it means don't go in there and screw it up. And by that I mean...
And that doesn't mean screws either.
Oh, right. Don't ruin it really badly.
Yeah.
The other thing, Americans have a ton of slang. And slang here, like I have no idea what half the people in the South are saying.
Listen, they're phrasal verbs that throws people. With the preposition up, to put up, to, you know, or just with the word to put, and then different prepositions, to put up, to put down, to put through, to put in, and they usually have double meanings.
Yeah.
So that's the, go ahead.
To put up or shut up means you do what you say you're going to do, or get in the game, or leave. But then to put down means to insult.
But it also means to put something down.
Yeah.
So those phrasal verbs, that isn't even the idiomatic, it's the phrasal verb. One way you can do it is read the paper, read things, and really pay attention to phrasal verbs. The other thing, if you still want better conversation, read novels.
Yes.
Novels have dialogue. Don't read technical books. If you want your English to improve, especially one-on-one negotiation conversation, read novels for the dialogue. You'll get all these expressions and all these phrasal verbs are in novels and dialogue. And there are plenty of action. They don't have to be wonderful philosophical novels. Just where people talk to each other. That's how you can improve.
That is actually the best bit of advice that we probably can give you all day.
In terms of language.
When I taught English as a second language, I made everybody read for 10 minutes a really horrible, cheesy, which means silly, novel.
Oh, I do. I say 30 minutes. You were nice. I
say
30 minutes every day.
I want 10 minutes. I just want 10 minutes. And then I asked them to tell me about it. And it's so funny how quickly you start to pick up these terms.
Very fast.
But at the beginning, you're like, I don't even understand what that person's saying. For instance, I just said, you're like. That means you either said or you're thinking. I'm all, she's all, and he's all. God, my parents hate that. My mom's a school teacher. I'm not all anything. I said, she said, he said, he's all, I'm all. Little things like that. And it's annoying because it's, you know, the words are changing and growing by the second.
In other words, don't pick up Americans' bad habits.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful Chinese gentleman who came to see me, and he was full of like, you know, and stuff. And that with a Chinese accent, I'm sorry, it was hilarious. And people weren't listening to him anymore. They weren't taking him seriously. He was a really bright man. So I had to cure him of that habit. But he wanted to really fit in and use all that slang and all those expressions, and it wasn't good.
So the last thing, I don't know how much, oh, I've got a little bit more time. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about is regions. This is the biggest mistake businesses make when they come to the United States. And it is critical that you do research on this. Northern California versus Southern California is like two different planets. I don't even understand my sister. She is so LA. I'm like, what she cares about is completely different than what I care about. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. the South. Texas is a planet.
Another planet.
Very strange planet. We like things big in the United States. They really like things big. Don't ask for vegetables. Just stop it when you get there. I sent my French clients to South by Southwest. It's a music festival and a technology festival. And the first thing he asked, he went to go get food, and it was like, do you want half a cow, a sort of cow, a whole pig, a small pig, a massive goat? And he was like, I don't even understand. I mean, it was like all of these, but like huge plates of food. So he said, I want the smallest thing you have. And they gave him a burger about this big. And the worst thing is that he didn't know what else to eat. So for 3 days, he ate these massive burgers. Because everything was just like, would you like this barbecued? Would you like this fried? And that kind of thing. So understanding these things, where the Bible Belt is, the Midwest all the way through to the South, it says a lot about not only the differences between Americans, but their buying purchases. So, who do you think is the biggest, what region of the United States do you think is the biggest online shoppers?
Fargo, where it snows.
Totally true.
Oh, really?
Totally true. They are trapped in snow for 6 months.
Either South or North Dakota. I don't know. Where is it?
Fargo is North Dakota.
North Dakota.
That means that you've got a captive audience that does not want to leave their house for 6 months. They buy more stick in those 6 months, well, in a year, but those 6 months, than the rest of the country. It's not, you would think it would be up here because we're all tech-savvy online shoppers. No. It's the living condition that is driving the purchase. Had a company that came out here from France. I think you guys know them, Voyage Privé. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yep, excellent service. So they came to sit down and talk to me about what should they be thinking about from a marketing perspective. What Voyage Privé is, for those of you that don't know, it's a members-only travel. It's like last-minute travel deals for all over the world. So they came here and they said they're incredibly successful. And they came to the United States and they said, what should we know? And I said, the first thing you should, I said, well, what kind of vacation deals are you showing? And they give me an example, and they give me this wonderful tour, and I just laughed at the end. And they were like, well, what? And I said, so, only 20% of the United States has a passport. At that time. Yep. That's the first thing you should know. They're not going anywhere. Okay? They can't go to Canada. That's the first thing. The second thing you should know is that it takes 5 hours to get from one coast to the other. I am not doing a weekend getaway with my man to Paris. It's a 14-hour flight. We'll spend a whole entire day getting there. I can't do it. I would go to Mexico. I would go to Hawaii. But I'm not going to Paris. You still tell a New Yorker, still a 5-hour flight. I'm not going to Paris for a weekend getaway.
Even from New York?
No.
Oh.
I don't have a passport.
Oh, that's right.
I can't. It won't let me on the plane.
Now you have to. Now there's a law. Everyone has. They have to have a passport, especially to get to Canada, get to Mexico. No more driver's license.
Oh yeah, that's
so
true.
People need a passport now.
Well, but they don't have to. See, they might not ever go to Canada. I've never been to Canada. And then you've got this attitude. I live in California. Why would I leave? I can go to snowboarding in the day, and the beach at night. I can do whatever I want right here. There are people in New York that don't have driver's licenses because they don't need cars. Not because they have to have one because it's a form of ID, but literally have never driven ever in their life. So when you are deciding to sell your purchases, wonderful mistake. This is a great one. You sell something and you say, well, there's a large Latino population in New York, and there's a large Latino population in LA, and there's another one in Houston, and I know they want these products. Let's put this girl up there, she's Mexican. In the ad.
Don't forget Florida.
Oh yeah, and then Florida. You just insulted the Puerto Ricans, the Cubans, the Salvadorians. You have taken out 4 of your states. It's an absolutely worthless ad. So, things to think about. There's a huge African population in Antioch, Georgia, and Indiana.
From where in Africa?
Several different places, but a lot of the lost children, the young boys that were in wars, were resettled in some of those areas. The funny thing is that the African population in Antioch is a bit...
know where Antioch is? It's the East Bay here.
Is a lot from the Ivory Coast and a lot Ethiopian. The funny thing is that they know, even though they're not from the same country, where the other African populations are. There's like a network. And why is there a network? Because there are certain foodstuffs that they cannot get anywhere else. If you identified a way to get those foodstuffs, you could actually have this massive network. So thinking about things culturally, regionally, it's beyond just male and female. It's language, it's culture, it's experience, it's the environment that they're living in. And for the first time, we can actually service those things because of some of the technology that we have. So take a step back, really define your customers, who loves what you're doing, that kind of thing, and then understand where they live. It's the biggest thing that sends companies home. It really is. I run into it all the time. Amazing product for 2 people. Really is. Yeah.
So do you have any questions? I want to say, if you want a business card of mine, write me an email. I'll send you some of the points. I can't send you the whole PowerPoint, because that's kind of what I use as intellectual property for a class, but I'll be happy to give you an outline. If you like my Facebook page, how's that? So do you have any questions? Did you have an embarrassing story to tell? That would be even more fun.
What do you think about this? When you're talking to people here, and they start doing this, and they go, uh-huh.
Drives me crazy. My dog, oops, but not saying
Uh-huh. Wait, no, wait. No, don't stop talking.
So what do you do politely to someone?